P90X Yoga X. So, what is all involved in this workout? What do you do? Because I really didn't list it up in the written post just because there's just so many different things you do. Well, I'm going to first break down the first 50 minutes of it. And this is the area where you're really working on the strength part of yoga. You're really strengthening your body by doing this. And you are moving throughout the full 50 minutes. You do hold poses here and there, for 20, maybe 30 seconds, depending on exactly what you're doing. And it is a little bit slower moving. And this is probably one of the bigger complaints of Yoga X is just, it seems to move real slow. But there's a lot of benefit to that. And I'll kind of get into that a little bit more when I talk about my experience later. So that's just one of the bigger complaints, other than it's just really long. But for the first 50 minutes, you're doing more of a moving portion of it. And you're doing moves such as, vinyasas, upward dog, downward dog, warrior 1, warrior 2, reverse warrior, warrior 3, triangle poses, reverse triangle poses, and a lot of others. Now, if you've never done yoga before, you're probably like, what? To anything that I just said. But, don't worry about that. It's not really so much about the names of things. You'll learn those real quick. Probably after the first 2-3 weeks of doing Yoga X, I knew, like when he said now go into Warrior 2, I knew what to do, or would go into Downward Dog. I knew what to do, so I didn't really have to watch the video. I could just listen to the cues and then do the move as he was telling you to do it. Because a lot of times you're not really facing the TV, your head's down or you're facing in a different direction. So it is kind of hard to watch and do at the same time. Now you will need to do it when you first start off, and that's fine because you're learning the moves, you're learning exactly what to do. So that's not a big deal, but the more you get into it, it is actually quite easy to learn what all the moves are name-wise. I didn't say it's easy to do all the moves, but at least you know what you're supposed to be doing. So that's just kind of the first 50 minutes. Like I said, it is a little bit slower moving, but you are constantly usually moving and doing different types of moves. And it really does work on the strength aspect. Now after you're done with that, you go into more of a balance routine where you're really focusing on balancing yourself in certain positions. And this isn't a very long part of it. It's real quick. Once again, it's not real easy, but it is quicker. And then you do some stretching. You do some spinal stretching, some back stretching, leg stretching. You stretch your sides out, your arms, all sorts of things. But you focus on just stretching. And then you do what's called Yoga Belly 7, which it's 7 moves that are focused on your abs and core. And I gotta tell you, some of these moves are really killer. Some of them I still don't get all the way through. But it does a good job working on your abs and core. So then you just have your cool down and relax period. And that's it. Hey, quick hour and a half and it's done. But, and that's, like I said, that's another one of the biggest complaints about Yoga X is that it's an hour and a half long. So here's my suggestion. And, it's something that I struggled with at the beginning of doing it as well because it was longer. And so, I'm always on YouTube watching videos of, things Tony Horton does or says, or some speeches that he does, or interviews that he has, along with all sorts of things related to P90X. But what I kept noticing in a lot of his interviews when the questioner would ask him about Yoga X, and is it okay for people just to skip it? And he's always like, no, don't skip it. If it's too long, just do the first 50 minutes of it. That's the part where you get the most out of, that very first moving part, when you're doing all your vinyasas and your warrior 1s and 2s and upward and downward dog and all that stuff. So that's my suggestion to you, is if it is too long, that's fine. Just do the first part. You really will benefit greatly by at least incorporating that first part into your routine and why you're doing the rest of P90X. So that's kind of what I have to say about that. Now, for my personal experience, when I first started out, I was horrible at yoga. I could hardly do any of the moves. I couldn't hold anything for very long. I was just bad. And so that first time I went through P90X, I pretty much skipped Yoga X almost every week. I either just wouldn't do anything that day or I'd throw in a different workout. And I wasn't too worried about it that first time through, but I realized later on that was a big, big mistake. Because there are so many benefits to yoga. Um, you'll see a lot of them in the written post if you read that. There's also, click on that link that I provided that I show even more benefits to yoga in an earlier post that I did. But anyways, back to, the second time I went through P90X, I had seen where people were saying, no, you just need to do it. Suck it up and do it. You will see the benefits. So I committed myself to doing it. And, the more I started doing it, the better I got at doing the moves. I was able to do them longer. And so the more I did it, the more I started to enjoy it. And, now it's actually one of my favorite routines to do. And I won't ever skip yoga again. Because it really does help me out in the rest of my workouts. And before I used to have a lot of knee pain and a lot of ankle pain. It was my joints just weren't that strong. I really had weak knees and weak ankles. And so, but the more I've done yoga and I've stuck with it, the stronger those joints have become. And now I no longer have any pain in my knees and ankles. And I attribute that to yoga and doing that on a weekly basis. So, like I said, at the beginning, I was horrible. You will be too if it's your first time doing yoga. Don't worry about it. Just keep working on it. You'll get better. You'll do it. You'll hold poses for longer, and you'll start to enjoy it more. That first 50 minutes goes by real quick for me now in Yoga X. Some days I still do the second part. Some days I don't. It just kind of depends on time wise. Like I said before, at least do the first 50 minutes, but don't completely skip Yoga X. Adios.